Hi everyone. Thanks for joining. I think we'll give it another 2 minutes before getting started.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Okay, I think we can get started. So hi everyone. I'm Nir, one of the maintainers of the project. I'll be hosting the meeting today. This is a CNCF project, so please be kind to one another and respectful. And let's get started. The meeting is recorded. I clicked on the record to cloud. I see, let me share my screen with the agenda. So I see that the first item is to verify that the recording from the previous meeting is available. I should mention that I checked YouTube earlier today and I found the latest video that I found was 2 weeks ago. So I haven't found the one from last week, but I did remember to click on the record to cloud today. So hopefully this will get published in YouTube. Do we have any additional action items from last week? I don't think we do. Okay, we don't have any. So first item, so I actually, Rob, you will excuse me, I saw you added, but I added mine first. So this is just like a quick topic I wanted to just mention. So we've heard that the quick start is now broken in main branch, which is problematic for newcomers if they want to give it a try. So this, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is a result of the latest changes to the CRD's APIs. So it would be really helpful if we can get this fixed as soon as possible. I know that there are a lot of PRs ongoing, but if we can prioritize the review and merging of those to solve the quick start issue.
Just to clarify, a quick start, if I remember correctly, like it has a few different implementations you compare it with. Do we know which implementation or implementations it's broken with?
I think it's just the, so let me open it. I'm not sure, to be honest, but let me open the quick start.
I know there's a bug in Istio that 0.5 would have affected.
Yeah,
But I
I
think
think
that
that's
was
the one.
already pretty quickly
Yeah,
fixed.
I think that's the one, the getting started with Inference
Yeah.
Gateway, something with the CRDs, that the person who ran
Yeah,
it, yeah,
yeah, for
was unable
context.
to, yeah.
we moved from using core v1 object reference to using a locally defined object reference because that core v1 type has a bunch of disclaimers and warnings saying never use this, basically. And so before GA wanted to make that swap. One of the differences is the core v1 object reference is a kitchen sink with all kinds of things that might be useful in some edge cases but weren't useful for us. That included API version. API version, sorry for background noise, but API version is, it was being set by Istio, and that was the bug that is being fixed. Maybe may already be fixed, but I'm guessing that's what's causing the problem.
Okay. So if we have like someone we can ping in Istio to make sure, and of course, if it's possible to test it also with K-Gateway, I can ping the person who identified this issue. I can ask him to
It's
run it with
possible that
K-Gateway.
it's possible that the conformance tests just need to, or sorry, that the quick start guide just needs to use a newer version of Istio. I'm not sure because like we
Istio
just
is a
saw a
problem.
conformance report come in from Istio for 0.5.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I think
there's a but. Istio works if you use a container built off of main. Okay, if you use a container built off the 1.27 release, it does not work. They missed the cut. The PR that added GIE support missed the cut. And Istio has a funny thing. Right now, for example, there are 1.28 alpha images available that just master. Right, it's whatever, the next release of a master, which is not a real release branch. Their PRs are open as of this morning, Israel time at least. They're still waiting for another 6 approvers. They seem to have like 8. Their PRs need a lot of approvers, at least what it seemed like. So that PR hasn't merged yet. And then we'll see what happens.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think it's worth like reaching out maybe to Lior or anyone from the Istio team to make sure it is solved as soon as possible.
I'm pretty sure. Like I know Lior had someone. I don't know if he was the one fixing it, but I've been talking with him. I think Anslak was the one. I don't know if I got the name right, but was the one who submitted the actual conformance reports. I don't know, but yeah, we should follow up with someone on this yourself.
In our Slack channel, there's a conversation which I got involved with the people who are actually doing that I did the PR. I will find it and throw a link here in the chat.
Yeah, and I think I saw earlier today a PR in Istio that merged that says something with the final support in the Inference extension in master branch. I'm not sure exactly about the details, but there is some PR from today.
Master is not that merged today. That could be that it could have merged it finally.
Yeah, either today or late yesterday. Not sure exactly about the time, but I saw it today.
We're not looking for a PR that merges into master. We're looking at PR that merges into release 127, but that's a minor detail.
Yeah, they might do like cherry pick or something like that.
They started by cherry picking. They made some changes, I think, while they're at it. I found it. Okay, I found it. It's a Slack conversation from yesterday. So a week ago. So I think that it started a week ago when Lior announced that they support it. So there's more as of Tuesday, at least Tuesday evening my time. There's an Aslak Knudsen. He was working on did the PR, I believe, and it's PR 57099 in Istio, if I'm not mistaken. And let's see if it merged. No, it has not merged. It is still open.
Yeah, I see 57097. That's the PR that was merged.
Yeah,
maybe they are linked or yeah. Okay. Anyway, we can take it offline. Just wanted to raise it here, this topic. Anyone else would like to? Yeah, Rob, go ahead.
While we're talking about implementations, I just saw that Envoy AI Gateway published support there. You probably saw that the comment from Shunzao, or probably not pronouncing that correctly in chat, but in Slack, trying to get conformance tests running. It seems like that's going well too. So one more implementation to choose from, and probably will need some updates for a quick start guide for them as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yep. Okay. So I think we can move to the next topic, Rob.
Yeah, I don't need to spend too long on this, but there were some good comments on that doc, and I thought it might be worth just having a little bit more discussion because I think the comments are from folks that are on this call. Basically, what I'm hoping we can do here is reuse. There's not a lot of information still, but I'm hoping we can basically reuse the existing multi-cluster service model and call this a tiny subset of it. And Itai, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. Okay, cool. You had suggested maybe we could use just copy what multi-cluster service did in its early days, where there was just an annotation on service, and maybe we do the same thing for inference pool of use an annotation. If that pattern works, we could either stick with it or we could mirror service export, but it seems like a good place for experimentation. I don't know, this is hopefully not too controversial, but the goal is to just copy multi-cluster service as much as possible and avoid the super cluster IP routing. That's it. And along with that, the automatic DNS naming. Yeah, Kellen?
I don't remember. We talked about this before, but was the plan to have an EPP per cluster?
I think that's it's a good question. I can imagine a world where you have an EPP that can see everything, but the simplest thing for me, at least, is that you have an EPP that's local to each cluster. So basically the way that multi-cluster service works today is you have services in each cluster that have namespace sameness, right? So namespace is the same across clusters. But that service is still unique to that cluster and its endpoints within that cluster. Mm-hmm. To me, that feels like the most straightforward approach here for inference gateway, for endpoint pickers, for whatever. If you had a centralized endpoint picker that could work, it requires, we have this pretty tight contract where, I have not spent a lot of time on endpoint picker, but my understanding is that it needs to have pretty, immediate awareness of what is happening on each pod within the pool that it's serving. And I can imagine if, right now, if that's happening by scraping metrics, if you're trying to, do that across clusters on a rapid basis, it's probably overly complicated and maybe not very efficient. What that does mean is if we have an endpoint picker per cluster instead of a central endpoint picker, is it makes things a little bit more fun for gateway implementations, right? Because then you need to decide, however you decide which cluster is getting a request is also, how you decide which instance of endpoint picker you send a request to. Those two become, very closely linked.
I would also say that an endpoint picker per cluster is functionally an inference pool per cluster, and so potentially it's there's.
Yeah, I mean, this is I think that's compatible with the idea of inference pool per cluster that just happens to be joined together, right? So every inference pool has its own local endpoint picker that's servicing it. And the multi-cluster component is really just understanding these things are linked together, and I can, send this request to either one or any of the ones that are linked together. So, yeah.
Itai, I'll let you go, but functionally what this is adding is the ability for one gateway to service pools across clusters. Is that what this would do then?
Yeah.
Okay.
But won't you need, and I think the main sort of gut reaction that I had to this is that multi-cluster services share a lot of information cross cluster, and they also make a lot of assumptions on the cluster set. From a networking perspective, you either have to have all pods and all services routable across multiple locations, which means a shared fabric, which is not, I think that's sort of the default on Google on GCP, but that's not going to be the default on many other cloud providers. And what I'm trying to still understand is, what do we gain in terms of what is the exact use case we're trying to address, and why won't that be better served or just as equally well served by having an inference pool per cluster along with a gateway per cluster and then some sort of a global load balancer. So you don't need to exchange all the information across everything, sort of keep the local information private to each cluster. Don't exchange metrics, don't exchange the endpoints. You don't need to track when model servers come up and go all over your cluster set. You just need to know when a cluster is added or removed to the cluster set, as long as you can route to it. And at that point, we might need some very high-level metrics about the whole model service in the cluster, not individual endpoints.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think that what the premise this is all based on is this idea that GPUs are still hard to come by, basically, right? And so that you want some kind of straightforward way for users to balance across clusters wherever they can find GPU capacity, right? You're right that you could have like cluster local gateways and then something above kind of the cluster local gateways that did the global picking, and that absolutely would work. And it's even possible, that could be an implementation detail of this API, right? Like maybe this is not something that's exposed to users, but it's just how it happens to work behind the scenes for some implementations. That seems plausible to me. What I think is the ideal, though, is that whatever is doing that, whether it's global picking, I don't think any multi-cluster requirement of multi-cluster is necessarily global, but just that there's something that understands things in more than one cluster. And I think that's very useful here. I think one of the things that if we just naively, did load balancing across clusters, we'd run into many of the same problems that led us to create this project, right? You need some awareness of what's happening in the clusters, some awareness of capacity, of load, so that you can make a reasonably informed decision at that top level, whatever it is, of which cluster should get the request. And so maybe I'm not entirely sure what that looks like yet, but I do think that that's the value here, right? If we just did kind of like naive round robin balancing across clusters, that would be unlikely to be effective. So you need some kind of additional smarts, context, I don't know, to help connect the dots, I think. Shmuel?
You're on mute, Shmuel.
You're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. I was going to say that within IBM and even Red Hat, there are people at the time who talked about, GIE being inside a cluster, and then something like Envoy AI Gateway being in front of many clusters together. That was one of the ways at the time to try to explain the synergy, try to explain some sort of synergy between these two open source projects. But as you said, it may not be enough. You may need some sort of, you said high level metrics. That actually sounds pretty good, and be a lot less metrics. You know, you just need some, you know, like I said, global metrics. Now, is there capacity altogether in here or not?
Yeah.
You know, assuming that all these clusters were the same and not different clusters serving different models.
Right, that, I think, Shmuel, that's the assumption based on the, you know, it's the same inference pool across everywhere, right? It's being replicated. So
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the big thing that would be different is the capacity in each cluster, right? You can imagine that one cluster has, you know, very simple example, one cluster has 5 GPUs and one cluster has 1 GPU, right? And so if you just do like a 50-50 split, that's not going to work. That's you know, oversimplified. Like I can't say you're gonna like do a like, you know, 80-20 split, but you like even that doesn't really work. But like you need some kind of feedback loop here.
I've seen weirder things in IBM, so it's very possible.
Sure.
Rob, I agree with you. I think that when we look at the two extremes, both of them can be either overly simple or overly complex. And we need to see if there's some kind of a midpoint that makes some sense, or at least is a step in the right direction. Then we can validate how much of it is needed and what do we need also to do in order to extend our capabilities to actually do the load balancing right. I certainly agree with you that just round robin would not make sense. But if we knew an aggregate capacity, aggregate usage, aggregate whatever per cluster, maybe that's enough to route it to the right cluster without having to know the specifics of each one of the GPUs or how many of them are busy at this point. So something along those lines might be useful.
Yeah, +1. So I think that's, you know, I've been probably too focused on just the, you know, API side of this, of like, well, here's how you could kind of like glue the bits together. But API side in and of itself, without showing how you can actually make somewhat reasonable load balancing decisions at this higher level, is not, you know, not sufficient. So I think that needs to be part of this doc as I build it out more. And ideas are very welcome, right? Like I think, like you're kind of mentioning, like maybe capacity is not, you know, is not great, but it's a relatively well understood thing that we can start with. You know, as an example, right? As an input. Cool. Okay. I don't know if there's any other comments or discussion we should have on there, but that was useful to help me work on some next steps here. And if anyone is, to be clear, if anyone wants to co-author this, like this is, you know, I want to keep on moving this forward, but I don't need to be the exclusive author of this. So if anyone wants to kind of collaborate with me on it, I'd be very, very welcome.
Rob, so the question I have is, did we reach someone from the SIG multi-cluster to try and get some feedback or maybe collaboration on this? I'm sure they have good feedback.
Yeah, I've had some like very, very early discussions, but I have not brought it to a SIG multi-cluster meeting yet, so I should do that.
Yeah, even, you know, even just to drop a message in their Slack, maybe just to get you know, the feeling if it's interesting, if they are interested in, that's also like a good option, at least to start with. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So
I'll for anyone who's interested in joining, I mean, I think I'll drop something in Slack, but maybe I'll also take this to you know, plan on putting this on the agenda for the Tuesday meeting next week. So if anyone wants to show up, I'll plan on being there.
Rob, I suggest based on experience, yeah, we had a multi-cluster networking project that was aimed at connecting services with policies and whatever. And what we found is that SIG multi-cluster is mostly about managing multiple clusters, and they were not really focused on networking.
Yeah.
And network seemed like the more appropriate place. I think also for MCS itself is in SIG network, but I might be mistaken there.
No, I mean, it's a messy. I don't know what owns anything anymore. But it is this weird intersection of like, it's actually a good question. I know multi-cluster servers originated in SIG multi-cluster. I think it's kind of been, looking, needing some help to get pushed further across. I have actually seen some really promising work to try and get it to beta. Finally, it's been kind of lingering in alpha for a long time, but I see it's getting close. So there are still some people working on it, but it's just been a slow roll.
Okay, so sounds like a plan. If we're done with this item, I think we can move to the next item in the agenda. Kellen.
Yeah. So we've kind of talked about a lot about the successor of the inference model API. I think we're all agreed on the inference model's pain points. I have a proposal here. I do want to mention I made some pretty substantial changes to it this morning, trying to reuse as much of the doc as possible, but that might make it read a little funny. So I was just going to give myself some time for my brain to like reset so I could read it with fresh eyes and see if it didn't make sense. But if anyone wants to, feel free. If you want to hit the rich diff button, it's that piece of paper in the upper left. Yeah, that'll read way better. So quick TLDR, inference model going away. We're going to implement in multiple phases. But I should first mention that the inference model was maybe doing too much. Discussion, lots of documents, lots of thinking, realizing that we have two concerns. We have this, I'm calling it a usage meter, this aggregation where we want to see over multiple requests. We need this form of, I use the term identity for lack of a better term, but it doesn't have to be identity. It's just basically, if you use this key, you are putting this request in this bucket, which is going to track usage, which matters for fairness. So rather than saying all that, I just say identity. So we have that portion, and then we have request-specific objectives that we want to add, like criticality. If you look at the flow control implementation, we talk a lot about interflow, or which is going to be between these buckets interactions, which would be fairness, and then intra-flow or identity bucket, whatever, which you might have different criticalities. Let's assume I want to place all of these requests under this certain labeled usage meter, but they might have different criticalities. One of these requests might just be like an offhand, if there's capacity, would love for this to return. Another might be, this is like critical for production workloads. This has a high latency to it. So that would be specified differently. A lot of words. So to quickly summarize, request level, each request could be different and it would specify these objectives, and then a higher order bucketization or identity, just to use a quick snappy term. If someone has a better snappy term, happy to use that. Anyways, so phase one will be only focusing on, as far as like CRD definitions, we're only going to focus on the request level one, which we're calling inference objectives, and it's only going to implement criticality. The phase two, because we don't have fairness really solidly implemented, we're going to have I don't want to use the term rudimentary, but a basic implementation of fairness as part of phase one. It just won't have a CRD associated with it yet. But phase two will be a longer form where we're going to add the SLO CRDs, that usage tracker, and then the fairness would bind to the usage tracker. If you want to scroll down, I think if you click that phase 1 link right there, actually it'll pop you to where you need to be. Yeah, so that was just a quick summary. Oh, good. Maybe the markdown, it worked in my VS Code. So I'll look into this. I'm sorry. This is not what we wanted. Scroll down a little more. Yeah, keep going. Bang, phase 1 right here. That's where it was supposed to take you. I don't know why it didn't. I'll figure that out. Yeah, so I talked about how we solved the 3 pillars of problems. We have the identification, the resource sharing. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's, I don't know. We have this, we have VS Code, and then we have make docs, and they're all their own personality. So anyways, I lost my train of thought. Oh yes, the bullet points here is what I really wanted to go over what phase 1 is, because this is the one I want to nail down. Phase 2 we can talk about, I feel like, for much longer term. So phase 1 I really want to lock in. So the EPP will expose 2 flags to define header keys, and these header keys will be what you would use to assign an inference objective or assign your fairness request usage. I'm going to pause because Abdullah has a hand. Do you want me to keep going, or did you want to hop in?
Keep going. I want to comment on the one related to fairness.
Okay, yeah. And then the model name rewrite functionality, we don't want to drop, but it is not going to be built into the API. So Abdullah wrote a little a document on how you can split traffic split across models or model name, and you can also use the BBR to extract the model name to a header, which the EPP will then rewrite. It should be mentioned that if you're going to use the model name rewrite, and I know I'm just throwing a lot of different things at you, but I just want to get across a large space. But if you're using the model name rewrite as like a critical path, if the model name you provide is not going to work with your backends and you need the rewrite, just note that fail open will not work for you. So if the EPP goes down, you're relying on the rewrite to have a valid request. That will also go down, which kind of cuts into some of our HA defense. And then, yeah, the traffic splitting across models. And then if you scroll down to see the CRD spec, it should be very slim and thin intentionally. So this is phase 1 here. We'd name it inference objectives, and it would literally just be criticality. Later on, we would go on to phase 2, and I'm trying to make it clear that phase 2 is still in development. But phase 2, we have this usage meter where you would have your usage limits, which I'm just trying to be really unopinionated about the terms I'm using, but that is essentially your fairness tracking. And then your inference objectives might pick up the performance objectives, or SLO. Those will be separate CRDs, so I'm kind of showing those 2 fields as a one-of where you can embed it, or you can have a reference to it if it's a common configuration you want to reuse. I'm going to pause there because I'm saying so many words. So Abdullah, go ahead. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I was trying to find the tab. I have two comments. One on the fairness. I understand that we want to have. I'm not sure if the community is like fully aware of what we mean, like, you know, why we need another header for fairness. And so the idea here is that we want to identify what are the flows that we want to apply fairness across, or identities or tenants. We've used like a lot of terms, right? In phase 1, we don't have a CRD to represent that entity. And so we're going to be relying only on the header. The problem with that is, again, a lot of the fairness implementations would probably want to assume that you know who are your entities that you want to apply fairness across. The current implementation that we're going with assumes that as well. And I don't think that this is an unreasonable assumption. I think it's actually better to know in advance who are you applying fairness across. You don't want, for example, request suddenly to inject a new unique, like, you know, identity, and then now it's part of your it's a new entity that you need to apply fairness across. Like your whole algorithm is gonna your outcome might change, right? So you want someone like the admin to define, here are the entities that you want to apply fairness across. Now, my suggestion is to start with the inference objective as that entity, and then move towards the inference usage meter, or whatever we're going to call it, in phase 2. I don't like that we're going to depend only on just a header without having a way to predefine who are like the actual, like, the scope of, I don't know how to call it, like the range of entities I want to apply fairness. I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly. Let me know if you get the problem and what I'm proposing as a solution.
I'll pause and let others go.
Shema?
Yeah, so I understand what you're looking for, Abdullah. I just think that it depends on what the actual workload is here. So, for example, as I understand it, you guys in Google are trying to build a large cluster that which has a very well-known set of users. Others may be trying to do a SaaS kind of thing, a model as a service kind of thing, where the users are much less well-known in advance, so they sort of drop in out of the sky. And there, what you might be trying to balance, not necessarily between users, but between service level objective is not the right word probably, but it's usually the guys who pay paid requests versus free requests versus the gold ones versus those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing. So it's a little bit different there.
I understand it's different. I'm trying to think about a phased approach as well. I
want to mention I think if we establish that this inference objectives fulfills both roles, and then we break that, I think that we might be establishing habits and then subverting them. To me, this phased approach, this makes more sense to me. If we want, because we're doing the fairness all in flags, you could also include a flag that is, potentially an array, maybe a long one, but it could be, these are your known identities. So then you can still, if you want that enforcement, because I do agree that should always be configurable. We right now, we're not really adding much administration to inference pool, but that was always kind of meant to be the point, right? Is the inference pool is where you would lay some ground rules down. So if we want to have that enforcement, I think we could do that via flag, and just right now kind of say fairness is just handled by flags right now. And we could quickly follow with these APIs if that feels too hacky or loosey-goosey. But to me, that makes more sense. So then we're keeping the behavior separate and distinct the whole time.
I mean, I could be on board with a config map where I can add new ones without having to fiddle around with redeploying the EPP.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
I mean, something like this. So that would be, to me, also acceptable. I just like the flow control feature that we're trying to get to completion, and I hate to get to the point where we have it, but then there's no way to actually identify the IDs by the time we get to it, and it's a major change to I think in the behavior of having the entities predefined versus being created on the fly. It's I want to be able to use it now, basically. So
yeah,
I think if everybody agrees as a way to identify these entities would be acceptable, I guess, to me.
And I just want to mention, for the master SaaS case where there's a high churn, And they might want to not have to specify a CRD every time, even if automation does it. But the flow control, it should be a rolling window. So even if they're anonymous, they'll pop up, and then if it's short-lived, they will fall off that window, and there shouldn't really be a need to have strong entries. But anyways, that can be
yeah, we can discuss like a follow-up on how we can make that more dynamic. Just so that I don't because the release is, I don't want to add that requirement on flow control right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so we can start with a set defined from a config map, and then move towards discussing an approach where we dynamically create new flows based on traffic. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, shouldn't the authorization somehow be external to GIA?
Yeah, we do no auth. Yeah, that we are completely letting someone else.
There's just some header that we trust, right? We're told, you can trust this header. How it got there, that's somebody else's problem in life.
That's correct.
That's either some auth, external auth thing inside Envoy or whatever you did. It's not our problem in life, right? You just have to be coordinated and make sure, right?
Yep, and that's why I added this ID string that is optional. If you don't include it, we'll just assume that your ID name is the kube object name. But I added this because you might want to make it like a one-way hash JWT if that's how you want to do it. Just giving options here. But anyways, Abdullah, just real quick before I just wanted to solidify on phase 1 that we are cool with defining inference objectives with just criticality, and then for fairness, having a simple config map flags, allowing that to be somewhat loosely defined for phase 1, and then we'll improve on phase 2. Is that good consensus from this group? I will take silence.
I see no one respond, but I really think we would like to see like the first version of this flow control inside. I think it will help us a lot, as a community. It will help us to shape the next phase. Once we see something working, we can think more deeper about what is missing, what do we want to add, what are the additional requirements. It's just such thing. We did the same thing with scheduling. I think it would be smart to do it here as well. So I'm on board completely.
Perfect. Abdullah, sorry.
Yes.
I want to move to another topic on the traffic splitting piece. So if anybody has any comments on phase 1, please. I
have a comment. 1 second. The plan of record release of from last week anyways, was that when you want to go GA with the Inference pool, you're going to make the entire repo 1.0.0. Just do remember what that means. That has implications for incompatibly, changes.
No, because each API has its own version. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I was gonna echo that. For better or worse, Kubernetes has established lots of precedent for breaking changes post 1.0, but those breaking changes, as far as I know, have been contained to alpha APIs. But they do still very much make breaking changes within alpha APIs, and I think
I see without an overall version change. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
The APIs are individually versioned, and therefore they have their own similar life cycle. Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
No problem. Sorry.
Okay, I want to follow up on the Nir put a good comment on the document about the traffic splitting. Kellen, if you can open that document.
I think Nir's got the tab.
Oh, okay.
There should be a link if you.
Yeah, like in the last one. No. I put it in the agenda.
It's in the agenda now.
Okay. That's the one.
So on the header name, And Rob, I want your opinion here as well. Like on the BBR, we agreed on a header name for the model. With this approach for traffic splitting, we would want to override the value in the header into the body, okay? Because that header name is going to be mutated based on, you know, the traffic splitting decision that HTTP route does.
So what you mean is that the gateway or something may potentially modify the header name, and by the time it gets to
the pool.
ETP,
Yeah. Or do we want actually this is a wait, we don't really need to change the header name. We can inject a new header here in the filter, right?
We could.
And that's right. We could, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. Then Nir, I guess I agree with you. We can do the name, like the Nir suggested a different name for the header that EPP would expect would actuate on to override, which is what did you suggest? I think it was a good suggestion. Maybe here in this comment. Yeah.
It was
Override.
like a model name rewrite.
Okay.
Yeah, so the intention was to have something like we have today, like before this change, that we have the initial model name and then we have the resolved model name. So these are two different names. So yeah, if you just write additional header, we can use the
Got it.
the origin. Yeah.
I think that's better, and that also works with our metrics story that already exists. That's based on model name and target.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
That's the only thing that I wanted to bring up here. Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Just real quick, because we have gateway folks here. Nir asked if you could split between multiple pools, and I assumed it was like any other backend, so I just said yes. I'm just making sure I'm correct? Question mark.
So maybe just before the answer, I assume Rob, you're going to chime in. But showing here the traffic splitting example. So basically there is this HTTP route that can split to multiple backend refs. And since we moved the traffic splitting one level up to the gateway, we can potentially split into two different pools. So that was the question, if it makes sense.
Yeah, that should work.
It should work. The thing I would call out here is that of all the features in Gateway API, one of the ones that is most poorly or very rarely supported is the per backend filters that you're using here. So the request header modifier per backend ref, I don't think is very broadly supported. So it is part of the API, but I don't think there's many people that actually support it. So that could be Danian, I don't know if K Gateway does. I'm pretty sure GK Gateway does not.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
So sorry, which part's not supported?
I think the filter in the backend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the filter in the backend is not supported?
You can specify a filter before backend resolution, right? But you're saying beneath is not? Sorry, Danian, I keep cutting you.
I was going to say, do we need to specify the filter in the backend rep as opposed to the rule up?
Yes, we do. I mean, we have to, because we need to inject the header. How else would we be able to inject the new header then? Rob, that's not supported on GK?
Isn't the BBR injecting the header?
No, the header with the target model name.
It is, Shmuel, it is a little convoluted. So the way it would work is you specify your model name. The BBR pulls that model name to the header. It comes to the HTTP route, and it will route based on that header and might inject a different rewrite depending on which pool it ends up, which does make sense because you could you could go to a different base model in that case. But yeah, a lot of different steps.
Oh yeah, I see what's going on here. I mean, it should work. It's part of the Gateway API spec for HTTP route. It's just something I haven't tested, so just caveat it. In theory, from a K-gateway standpoint, it should work, but I would need to verify it. I mean, maybe we create an issue in the repo and then tag some of the gateway implementations and have people verify that it works as expected. And if that's the case, maybe even add a conformance test for this as well.
Yeah.
Rob, what is not supported on GKE?
So inside the backend refs, you have a filter.
Yeah.
Request header modifier.
Yeah.
That is not supported.
Oh, so then this would not work on GKE, like the traffic splitting stuff.
Correct. It would work if you. I missed that was per backend ref. Like the filter is supported. The confusion is it's not supported at the granularity of backend.
Is that like something too complicated to add, or is it like what is the reason we don't?
I think it. Yes, probably. I think this goes all the way down to Envoy, in the sense of, maybe there's a. It's non-trivial, anyways. That's what I would say.
Like, how did that go into the API without Envoy as a key proxy not be able to support it?
Yeah. Okay. So maybe some people have found a way, but I can say with certainty it is a poorly supported feature, unfortunately. Yeah. Let me dig into that more.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we should raise a flag here. So this comment, if it's not supported properly, maybe it's not possible to do this change as we are today. So it would be good if we can get an update on this soon, right, Kel and Abdullah?
Yes. Yeah, it would be good to get this resolved.
Okay, so we have a few more minutes. I asked here in the chat, Andres, if he wants to discuss a new proposal for something that we found was missing. Let me see. It's
Yeah,
a
I just added the link to the notes.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, the TLDR here is that we're proposing an update to the endpoint picker protocol to add a new metadata field, which I'm tentatively calling X gateway destination endpoint status. Nir, I saw that you have some comments. I will respond within the next hour. Is my goal right now.
Yeah.
And really the goal of this extra header is, at least in the short term, to notify the endpoint picker what the data plane, which endpoint the data plane actually used to send the request. And the reason we need to do this is, we have, an endpoint list that the endpoint picker can provide to the data plane, right? And if for whatever reason the primary is not available, it needs to try the other endpoints in the list, and eventually, hopefully, one of those will succeed, right? So there's a desire now in the endpoint picker to know exactly which endpoint was used by the data plane, right? So this is what we're trying to communicate back as part of this metadata field that we're proposing here. Nir, I did see that one of your comments was, why can't we just simply provide the IP port? I mean, we could, but one of the things that I'm trying to do with this field is to make it generic enough that we can add other endpoint status in the future. So I'm trying not to make it single purpose. I'm trying to allow us to maybe specify, like how many retries, for example, did it did it take to find an endpoint, or other useful information about that the data plane may want to provide to the endpoint picker. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we should take it also as we do with other features as a phased approach, because what we have today is like we have the request path where we specify multiple endpoints, and the thing is we do like fallback and retries. Like this is let's call it a prioritized list of endpoints, right? It goes first to the first endpoint. If it fails, it continues to the next one, and so forth. So basically, inside the EPP, we have that information of what were the potential endpoints and their order. So if we know what is the selected, which endpoint served the request, we know that the ones that were before in the list, they failed. So what we have today, we have this feature in the request path that we can fall back, but the response path is missing. I think that so I'm concerned that if we add here a lot of information, that might take a lot of time for the gateways to implement this part of the protocol, and then we might get stuck on it instead of doing like a quick turnaround and complete this feature. Because so personally, I would not recommend to use the fallback if I know that I might break the post response. So post response is some extension point that allows caching some information about the endpoint that served the request, which is now, it's not guaranteed. So I think it would be good to just at first get this information, which is mandatory. And the other information, like the number of retries and such things, it's good to know, but I'm not sure it's mandatory, at least not for now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think notifying which endpoint was used seems like a must, right? Where some other fields here could be shoulds or optional, right? So yeah, we could split it out into other metadata in the future, like add the optionals as another metadata field. So
yeah,
so that's fine. I'll respond to your feedback and probably make a few small changes here.
perfect. So if anyone else, I see we're out of time. If anyone else has more feedback on this, so please comment on this issue 1226. Thank you everyone for joining. See you next week.
Wow.